Welcome back, guys. By the end of this video, you're going to have an outbound agent who's going to be able to make calls for you, send texts, and book meetings straight into your calendar. As soon as that lead goes into your CRM, your customer is going to get a phone call like this.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for reaching out to Build and Bloom. I'm Sarah, following up on your inquiry about AI lead gen. Do you have a moment to chat?
Now, we're going to get into the build. Alrighty then. Let us get started. This is the complete voice system with all tiers. This touch points wise only has 4, which is pretty good. It's a good starting point. Ideally, statistically speaking, you want to aim for about 7 to 10 touch points, which we're going to build out. There's 3 main workflows here. I have included the middle one. This is if you have a webhook that's providing data from somewhere else. Alternatively, you can get a Facebook form filled and it could just send the webhook directly and it'll fill out the data for you. Okay. What I'm going to go through before I even do that, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow ourschool.com, where you're going to get all these resources free. I'll give out all these JSONs free. I do sanitize them to ensure that, you don't get any of my APIs. But if I do miss one, please just don't use my shit. Oh no. But anyway, as you can see, this is the main workflow. I'm just going to go through the main workflow, and then you should intuitively know how to configure the rest of the stuff. If you followed along from my other videos, I have a process where I'll pin data so I can work through the workflow. I am sorry, guys, I am a little bit sick. But anyway, let's not drag this along any further. Let us get going. So we have a couple of workflows. I use Supabase. Supabase is a beautiful data storage system that you could ideally attach to most things or anything that has API capabilities, or if you start building out some Python databases or anything along those lines, Supabase is a phenomenal resource, which we'll start building out slowly together. I do think at the end of the day, the goal should be for you guys, if you're following along with this, to be able to create agentic agents using Cursor or anti-gravity. That's what I'm using at the moment, which is pretty cool. So you guys want some videos on Cursor or anti-gravity, or just my process when I'm creating this kind of stuff? Because if I was to be totally transparent, I am rambling a little bit. Creating these workflows, if you know how to use Claude or you know how to prompt, it becomes significantly easier because you can just tell the LLM what to do and the LLM would be able to generate you the workflow. I think it's crucial for you to understand the logic behind what you're creating. This is a visual representation of the logic because the LLM does make mistakes. What I've figured out is over time is that some LLMs are so sure of their logic, even if the logic is totally wrong, that you literally have to force and ask it, are you 100% sure? Because my understanding of this, break down your logic and how you've interconnected your information to understand your logic or to visualize your logic, and eventually it says, wait, no, you actually are correct. What I'm trying to say is try to understand the logic behind what you're building. Try and understand what this does. From our previous videos, we use the Airtable leads. We've got this one here. Ideally, you would create a table with these values. Very similar to what we built before in our previous videos. So do check them out. If you'd like me to do a deeper dive on Airtable and how to use Airtable, let me know. Easiest way, if I was to be totally transparent, is take a screenshot of this whole, the last 3 or 4, whatever. You don't need intelligence grade. You don't need business skill. You don't need geographic market, industry pain points. You will need follow-up date, response signal, last retail call ID, call tier, because that's how you're going to determine the place that your system is. All right. Let us begin. Let us test these one by one. The way this is set up, it's Zapier, Typeform, Airtable, n8n. Depends on how you get the data inside your Airtable. You could just do a web form straight into Airtable. I just prefer using Zapier. You could probably use make.com. Make.com also does make things pretty easy and pretty self-explanatory. If you guys would like some videos on how to use make.com, let me know and I'll be able to go through that with you guys. So lead through. So what this does, loop through new leads, is if you have a large number of leads, let's say you've got 5 to 10, 15 leads, it's going to batch them up. So it's only going to loop one at a time. You can do up to 5. Retail has a concurrent limit of 10. What that means is you can only have 10 calls going at the same time. Highly unlikely that you're going to need more than 5. I just put this as 1 for the sake of the YouTube video. This is how I set up the timer. Okay. So it's set to be between 12 and 2 because I find those are the most responsive times. Between 1 and 5, which is the evening, and between 9 and 6, Monday through Saturday. Those are the days it's allowed to make phone calls. Sundays, it can't call. And that is pretty much the same format: second, minute, hour, day, month. Yep. Cool. So those are the times that I found would be most valuable. And this is just to validate the Airtable fields. This is a node that you might not need. However, I think it is handy to have. This is going to loop over. This is for Supabase. It's going to fetch the lead, blah, blah, blah. There you go. So if you remember from before, I have already set this up. These are things that you're going to need to set up. If the number is already in Supabase, it is going to fetch the SMS history. If the number is not in Supabase, it's going to create a lead and then go through the fetch SMS history. However, purely on the fundamental basis that it is a new lead, there should be no SMS history. Ergo, you have to always output data. That's the reason we always output data, this particular function here. The reason we have this on is that you create a lead. However, because it's a new lead, there's no SMS history. Therefore, you must always request that this node outputs data regardless. And then this will fetch the call history. Because you remember we did set the tables. I recommend that you have an SMS table, a call history table, a leads table on your Supabase, which I did show you guys previously in the other videos how to set up. If you want, join our school.com and just scroll back and you'll find how to set up the Supabase tables. If you'd like me to briefly go through it all again, do let me know. So we're just going through these step by step, tier by tier. Okay, so it's going to fetch call history. The reason we have this field on, always output data, is if you think about the logic, in the potential that it is a new lead being entered, there is no SMS history and there is no call history. You don't want the workflow to stop on the basis that there is no SMS history, nor is there call history. Therefore, if you'd like the nodes not to stop, you'd go always output data, and it would be blank. However, the workflow would proceed. If you turn this off, I'll show you guys at the end, or I can just show you now. Let's say true. In order for this to work, we can go in here and switch this number. Let's go 5555 and save. Cool. Fetch lead from Supabase. Let's find out. Let's see. Still comes out as true. So we would need to change it in here. So if we change this here, so we can test it. 3555555, and then we go save. And then what we'll do is we'll unpin this. Let's unpin that data set. And then we'll go here. Cool. Same thing as here. Execute. Cool. See, in the potential that you don't find that value or that number is not in your Supabase, and a new one is required to be created, you want it to output data. If we turn this off and execute it, no data is being output. All right. So it is crucial to have this on. Okay. It is very crucial. Now let's follow along. See, now this false goes to the false branch. That therefore means it's going to create a new lead in Supabase. So remember how we went through these. So if you want to fill out this leads, when you create the tables on your Supabase, you will go here, you go schema, and you will drag the points that you need. So the phone number will go in here, name will go in there, email, contact ID. You use the contact ID as the record ID, which I should probably change. You should probably change that to record ID. I think it would make things a lot easier for you. So this one, you want to test the phone. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. Let's go by node. Again, just drag this here. Okay. So what we would do is, let's say it comes out blank. You would drag this there, and that one, that's what's going to come up. Or you could also use this one. Okay. You drag it, execute step. Cool. So now, because we have run this node before and created the lead on Supabase, it now pulls up a lead. Okay. So even though that's there, we'll go execute this. This should come out as true now. Comes out as true. JSON phone, same thing, just drag phone. Or you could actually just type this in. So you could go JSON dot phone. There you go. JSON dot phone. And close that. Looped over new leads, which is this one. Yep, that one there. And you copy and paste it there. And let's execute that step. Fetch call history. There should be no call history because there's no number there. Fantastic. Build tier 1 context. Ideally, this summarizes the call history and the SMS history to give your retail agent some context. Ideally, what this does is it'll compile the history. Let's say you're in contact with in the potential that the client was already in contact with your agent and has been sending SMS back and forth with the agent and goes into an outbound call, this will summarize the call history and the SMS history, build it into a compounded text, and send that data to the agent. So when the agent makes the phone call to your potential customer, it has some context and some history to proceed with the conversation, giving the agent a little bit more of a well-rounded understanding of what's actually going on. All right. So I'm just editing this so I can execute. So let's execute the step. And that should make this phone call. Let's go back here and change this to an actual number, which is mine. Let's go here. Let's execute that workflow. Should go all the way through. Fantastic. See, first here it says 100 items. Those are all conversation messages that went back and forth through that. This is taking a little bit more time on the basis that it's gathering all the call history, so it might be a little bit. Cool. And there you go. That's the phone call.
Hi, Tier 1 Test. Thanks for reaching out to Building Bloom. I'm Sarah, following up on your inquiry about service_type E. Do you have a moment to chat?
Yes, I do. Right. So you need to ensure that from your Airtable, you have first name there. So this is the phone call that just occurred. Contact status TBA, not booked. Phone number will be in here. First name, last name will be in there. It'll generate the information from here and push that information through here. The reason it said first name underscore is because the information that's being sent is, definitely need to clear out the testing from Supabase. However, you can see where it got that information. I'll give you the JSON for this. You just need to make sure that you have the right credentials. This is your API key. Contact type applications.json. Okay, so you just enter that in there. This JSON, if you want to put dynamic variables are just information that's always changing and they're not hard-coded to a particular data set. The name is going to be dynamic. The phone number is going to be dynamic. The interest is going to be dynamic if you're servicing multiple different service types. So if you're servicing plumbers and everything else, it'll go through that as well. You do have to be careful because I'm most likely going to pay a lot for this. This does chew up quite a bit of your token limits. I need to clear this before I push this any further. I'll pin this so it doesn't keep making the same call over and over again. As you can see, the build tier 1 context builds a summary, which is like the summary of the text messages. So it does compile everything from that one specific lead. So from the SMS video that I showed you guys, I guess you're building a full ecosystem here. It'll be able to gather the data from that SMS history, gather the previous phone calls. This is 1,000 items. This is crazy. This is going to kill my token limits. Oh, yeah, I definitely need to wipe that. And sends it off as one item. And okay, so now let us figure out the Airtable for forbidden credentials. Yes, yes, yes. So we'll go here. That's not the right one. No, we're going here. Cool. So you don't need this. Just delete that. Attempt 1 initiated. You don't particularly have to have the first name and etc. Okay, you can match it based on the record ID that comes from your Airtable. You match it off the record ID that comes off their Airtable. From there, you're going to mark this as call tier 1. Call tier 1. Contact status. Call 1. SMS status. The SMS agent should deal with the SMS status, or the next nodes will deal with the SMS status. Call status. Why did that show up to us twice? Cold. All right. So the reason we have two, contact status, is to show you how many calls have already been made. Call status is what part of the tier it's occurring, right? For tier 1, you've got cold, which is the first one. The second call is follow-up 1, then follow-up 2. And then unreachable inbound call is if you get an inside call. You could probably delete them, and then this one you put tier 1 here. That should work now. What I can do, I need to clean out that data, because that data is very problematic. Problematic it is. I'll pin this as well. And let's execute this. Cool, beautiful. We got that. That's pinned. As you can see, it doesn't make a phone call. So there are some that you can pin and some that you can't. But I'm trying to test this step here. This is a creating call record. What do we got here? Build tier 1 context. We can use this one instead. It doesn't exist because it's test data, but the data would be that one there. Okay, so what we'll do, we can enter it, or we can enter it, or we can just go always output data. If you do decide to go through this method, you have to make sure that you come back and change this. Go continue anyway. That's because the data is empty. I usually just add all of that at the end. After 3 minutes, it's going to wait 3 minutes and then make a follow-up call. And then check call from here. Call ID. What I'll do is turn this one off for now. Cool. And it's going to evaluate the call outcome. Okay, when you are doing stuff like this, maybe just do this or add a sticky if you need to fix that later on. Otherwise, it could be an issue. I'm just showing you guys the process that I usually go through when I'm troubleshooting. Okay, so we've gone all the way to evaluate call outcome. It'll evaluate what the call outcome was, obviously. More like it's going to scan the previous node. So this is also attached to a webhook, and this webhook evaluates the previous call, the current call, I should say. So the reason we have this wait for call to complete is that when the call completes, there's a workflow that triggers and it fills out this data. So right now, we've already tested, so attempt 1 was success. So this is in the potential, let's say that once the phone call has already gone through, and it was a success. So the phone call, let's say the person booked a meeting or just went through and the person wasn't interested, whatever it was, the call outcome is evaluated. Okay. Now, so we want to test the next workflow. So we'll change this to true and we'll save it. Okay. And once that is done, and we've changed that value, what will occur is that if node, right, is going to direct the flow towards this secondary workflow, which is a smart SMS follow-up. This is where the magic happens. The potential that the first phone call hasn't been picked up, we will send a follow-up SMS or you've missed this call SMS. Hey, it's Alex from Build and Bloom. Sorry I missed you. I was calling to chat. Hi, this is Alex from Build and Bloom. Sorry I missed you. I was calling to chat about an inquiry automating a business admin. Feel free to text me back here if it's easier to call. The reason it says feel free to text me back here is because you have to remember that this ecosystem talks to itself. So if the person prefers SMS, they can have a SMS conversation, and the SMS agent that we've talked about previously, or we built previously, will have the ability to book the phone call for you. This will log the missed call SMS. Okay. Let's turn these off primarily on the basis that we just want this workflow to go through all the way in. Or you can just turn this on to like 5 seconds for the purpose of testing. For the purpose of testing, I generally just turn these off. I find it easier to test with these off. You would turn them on when you get to the point where you're hard testing every single potential outcome that occurs. And you're hard testing the post-call webhook. So I'll show you how to attach a post-call webhook, what the post-call webhook is, and how to set up Retell. So let us execute this workflow so we can see where this goes. Cool. So the SMS was sent. Let's have a look. Oh, was it sent? Yes, it was. There is the SMS sent just then today at 8:30. Okay. Same as all the other ones, right? So you'll copy and paste or just drag these values there. This one is probably where you would have to make a few changes. Okay, now you need to ensure that the custom name is attached to every single SMS you send. This is how the SMS is going to come out on your device. So what you can do is, if you need to change this value or if it comes up as red, you can copy and paste this to ChatGPT or whatever LLM that you use. This is the HTTP request, exactly the same as the initial call. Okay. So we've already gotten to this part. We can execute it one more time. Cool. And all right, so this is for the Supabase to create initial call record. Okay. And so this creates a call record for the second phone call. So let's push this. Oh, let's stop this. Let's put these wait nodes. Let's turn off this wait nodes for now. So you can just see the flow of the data without having to go through the 2-minute nodes and wait every single time. The reason we have this wait node is we want it to wait about 2 minutes or a certain amount of time prior to resending it. The reason this hasn't gone through again is because there is a duplicate call ID. So what I'll do is I'll change this and I'll put 33, save, and execute this again. And then it should go through. Cool. And let us trigger this flow again. Cool. So we've gone to here. So this is just credentials check. I need to switch that. That's cool. And once you do that, you should be able to just execute step. So this is just permissions, so it just doesn't have access to that particular Airtable. The API is not correct. Okay. Cool. So let's execute that workflow again. You do have to clear the Supabase data after you finish your testing. I'm just showing you guys my troubleshooting steps when I have a workflow like this to get it all working, right? I think it's cool to see how people are creating their workflows, but those tips and tricks, that of which make your configuration a lot more efficient, just having these pinned nodes and being able to modify and change the pinned nodes. So for this, I could switch this to success. I could go true, which we've done so many times already, just so I can test this if node and test that this is actually working properly. So if I execute this workflow, now it should go to the other ones. We have forbidden credentials. That just means you need to make sure that you change these. Favavoom. And do it again. I should pin this as well, otherwise. Especially if you're testing phone calls and text messages, make sure that you just pin them. Otherwise, it's just going to keep sending messages and it ends up being quite expensive if you're configuring. All the separate pathways work, so we know everything is configured properly. You can just go independently and configure the rest. When I'm finished and I've configured everything, I can make sure I've turned that one back off. If you leave them and there's an error in your workflow later on, and which I'll show you guys how to put error handling, it makes things a lot more tedious and frustrating because your data will stop somewhere. You have to go through and figure out exactly where all the data sets are going. This is how I set up my Airtable. So contact status determines whether the lead was contacted through SMS or voice. Call status determines the success of a voice call. Call tier 2 is only engaged after follow-up 2 call. Contact status is primary. Contact status is the primary method that determines what tier it is. So I've given you guys 3 workflows that you're welcome to use. You've got tier 1, which is this one. This is the main workflow. When the lead goes into your Airtable, it'll trigger this after 15 minutes within those certain parameters that we set. Let's go through the full tier system one more time. The first set of calls, which is the main workflow, As soon as the lead goes into the Airtable, they're going to get a phone call. If they don't pick up that phone call, they get an SMS message, and then a second phone call occurs. That occurs after 2 minutes. You get the second phone call, and then you get the SMS. It's totally up to you on how you want to set it up. After the second phone call, the second SMS is sent. All right. Tier 2 is after 4 hours. So after 4 hours, it's just a follow-up. And tier 3 is after 24 hours. Okay. You can just ideally just keep adding to this as much as you want. We just copy and paste this workflow. And this is a voice called Webhooks. So this is through a webhook. So you'll enter this webhook into your meta leads or whatever platform you're using to get your leads. So it's totally up to you what you want to do and how you want to set this up. I will put all of this in our school.com. So do join, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. There you go. You now have a 4 touch point complete voice system that has context if there was a SMS conversation and previous call history as well. So when they have a conversation, the agent is going to know and have information on previous calls or SMS history and all that jazz. The next video, we'll be setting up the post-call follow-up and the pre-call data. Do like and subscribe, and I will show you how to do all of that.